Based on an annual survey of more than 16,000 global shoppers, this session will review key trends in Millennial and Gen Z shopping habits and provide specific examples of how retailers can adapt to meet consumer demands. The speakers will discuss the importance of pricing, product sustainability, and ethical sourcing, and why these consumers are increasingly buying apparel and footwear outside of their home countries. Our speakers will be Clarissa Schealer, VP of Sales, Beauty, Wellness, and Lifestyle at ESW, and Markus Wilhite, Global Product Manager at TATCHA. Please welcome them.
So thank you, Markus, for hanging out with us today.
Yeah.
You know, Markus and I have been talking off and on for a year, and I've been just so enthralled with the story of TATCHA, how you guys came to be, where you are in your space, and just hearing your passion talking about the brand. And all of the things that make TATCHA so special are a lot of what everyone's been hearing about this week, that Gen Z, millennials, love brands that are authentic, brands that are sustainable. And the biophilic aspect of TATCHA is what is just so compelling to me. So I'd love to hear a little bit from you about the ways that TATCHA's been pioneering in the space for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I think for us, it starts with product, right? So TATCHA is a beauty brand based in, I guess, more time-tested Japanese rituals. A lot of them come from a place of, kind of historical and traditional grounding in ingredients and, cultural studies, et cetera. So what we try to do is take those more ancient or time-tested things and then bring a more modern edge and scientific approach to how to incorporate them into skincare today. So I think one of the most recent ways that we've been innovative in this space is with our body collection that launched earlier this year. It leans pretty heavily into the Japanese art of forest bathing. So when you are out in the forest, when you're exploring, the trees actually emit something called phytoncides, right? And phytoncides are a chemical that when you ingest them has a a mental effect, right? As it's not just someone thinking that they're feeling more relaxed or less stressed in nature, it's actually biological, what's happening with them. So what we did with the Force Awakening collection is take phytoncides and bottle them into a body collection that you can use in your home and really try to deliver a functional fragrance beyond just something that smells nice, but that can really allow the consumer to take that moment of reprieve, which is really so important to TATCHA to provide that for our consumer.
Sure, and we're starting to see, of course, everyone's heard all the statistics, again, about how important brand identity is for shoppers around the world, right? And we know that millennials, for example, are shopping cross-border in the same way, my generation would go to a department store to buy a lipstick, maybe, a drugstore to buy the mascara. Now they're really going country to country. And a lot of what that draw is certainly the amazing products, but it's also things like, is the brand out there for me from a mental health perspective? Is the brand sustainable? And I know both of those things are really important to TATCHA's core. Your DNA is all about that. So could you share a little bit more about your mental health aspect of that forced awakening? I know you created an experience. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We built a digital room surrounding the Force Awakening collection, and really the challenge for us was not to build a room that was just like everything else people had seen. You land there, there's promo codes, there's things that you can shop, and that's what everyone is expecting when they enter that experience. What we wanted to deliver was consumer benefits that go beyond just getting someone to buy the product. So we wanted to explain to them there is this very tangible result you get from going out into the forest, from being in nature, from taking moments away from the crazy, hectic, metropolitan urban lifestyle that so many of us engage in. And provide somewhere for them that had that same kind of tranquility and serenity that wasn't over commercialized, right? So obviously there are products in the experience and you can shop them there if you want to, but there's also a meditation practice. There's a lot of education surrounding forest bathing. Dr. Lee, who we worked with to kind of really take those benefits and figure out how to bottle them. So mental health is huge for us. We love to express a ritual or a routine to our consumer, right? So, a 4-step skincare routine, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, hopefully. But also, for us, step 0, as our founder says, is always to just take a moment and breathe, right? You have a very busy lifestyle. You've got so much going on. Why not start your day by taking a moment for yourself before you go on to all of the important priorities that you have? So mental health, really big for us. Sustainability, also something that we've been stepping further and further into. So, some of the table stakes things like all recycled plastic, sustainably sourced papers, et cetera, are where we've been. We're moving towards refillable pods so that we're not kind of creating that primary waste in an ongoing capacity. But really also leveraging our parent company, Unilever, and the wide breadth of resources they have from an ingredient perspective, from sourcing. A lot of what we want to be able to do is say, from end to end, once you wash it off and it goes down the drain and it gets filtered out, how is that then interacting with, water tables and different things like that? So lots more work to do there. I think that that's definitely where we're shifting our emphasis now from a sustainability perspective. But great work has been done, I think, by the brand in both of those realms up until now.
Awesome. And that's something, we hear so much about the concept of greenwashing, where brands on the surface are saying things, but hearing that you contemplate that whole journey of product through to what it does to the water supply is just amazing. And really, all of that is fantastic. It's fantastic for us, it's fantastic for the product, but when you think about it as a brand, what we're here for, is to generate revenue, right? And the beauty now of Millennial and Gen Z shoppers are that they're not mutually exclusive, right? Being a sustainable brand is going to drive shoppers to you. We know, up to 86% of those Gen Z shoppers get excited when they know a brand has sustainability in their DNA, as you guys do. And we also know the importance, we've been hearing a little bit today and this week in sessions around the concern people have of the shrinking of the wallet here in the US, and what's that going to do. And that's also a big part of the why brands like TATCHA are looking to grow and find share of wallet outside of the US. And we know that skincare, for example, your sweet spot there, is one of the fastest growing spaces internationally. And we've got up here a few statistics to share with you. It's actually pretty amazing to see the high percentage of shoppers globally that are truly shopping cross-border for products like skincare. And I know that you're all on a journey to really take some iterative steps to grow internationally too. And could you share a little bit about your why in that space for international growth?
Yeah. For us, we've been stepping further and further into the kind of global mindset over the past few years at TATCHA. We launched the UK market, we launched the Japan market, and we did a lot, I think, up front to kind of try and replicate the business as we see it in the US. And over time, obviously, what we've come to learn is those markets are different. That consumer is slightly different. You need to have that same level of intention that we've brought to the American consumer when we reach out to someone in the UK, Canada, Australia, China. Many of these are kind of the big countries for TATCHA internationally. And I think, starting to work with ESW for us was, I think, a little bit of taking control of the reins of that experience and saying to the consumer, we're not just going to, throw everything at you, right? We're gonna look at you and go, what do you want? Like, what do you need? Well, I guess the way that we approach it is, what the company thinks the consumer needs, and then what the consumer thinks they need, or what the company thinks the consumer wants, what the consumer thinks they want, but then what the consumer actually needs, right? And so that's kind of that ethos we have here in the US around routine and moments for peacefulness and tranquility. I think for us, we think you want skincare, you think you want nice skin, but what you really need is a way to ground yourself in your day-to-day activities, in what's important to you, and take those moments.
Right. And I've had so many conversations with you, but this is the first time I really was mindful of that step zero. And I guarantee you now, and I hope all of you do it, when you go home and you're doing your ritual, like take that moment and stop and breathe for a second. I think that's just such a beautiful sentiment. And again, looking at your product line and the diversity of products that you have in your category, it really has me thinking about some of the challenges that international brands face when they are going out in the world and they're trying to promote their products. So many brands, think to open, a store, whether it's a physical store in Japan, for example, and they'll have everything in, US dollars, or you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go to Japan and have everything in US dollars. You wouldn't have an entire team manning a store in Tokyo speaking English, right? But so many brands do that online and in their experience. And I know when we were talking, you mentioned the idea of really being intentional in moving forward and really expanding that share of wallet and launching in international markets. And I've seen some of your plans and your roadmap. If you could speak a little bit to, again, the why behind that intentionality and what your goals are in that growth.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we launched the UK market, we launched the Japan market in the past couple of years, and the UK market went, I'd say better than the Japanese market. We're finding that in Japan, the consumer is just so incredibly different than what has, I guess, worked for us in the US. There's a lot more, that sense of authenticity. Are you really a Japanese brand? And for us, being a brand that is based in San Francisco and founded by Americans, but grounded in the traditions of Japanese culture, we have to figure out how to present that to them in a way that feels authentic and real. Otherwise, they just see right through it. They just think, oh, you're an American brand just coming here to capitalize on the dollars. And for us, brand evangelism has been so important, right? TATCHA has spread word of mouth, she sees us in Sephora and things like that, but a lot of the consumers that come to us when we engage them in surveys and talk to them, they say, well, a friend told me about it, right? And that friend loved our happiness guarantee, right? You can get free returns with no limit. You can send us empty products and we will give you your money back, right? Because we believe that our skincare is great, and if it is the right fit for your skin, then you're gonna continue to come back. So we've always been about building a relationship. We don't call them customers internally, we call them clients. It's the little things that I think shift the organization's mindset away from just focusing on the revenue and trying to understand how to give consumers a white glove experience that makes them want to come back over and over. And we've actually even seen on kind of the opposite end of the spectrum there, when we falter as a brand and don't deliver a really great consumer experience for whatever the reason may be, maybe logistically we didn't have things set up to get products to people as fast as we normally do, we see dips in our LTV or dips in that kind of customer retention because we're not living up to the brand promise that we make so forward.
Well, that's very interesting. So authenticity, again, ranks so high on the list for shoppers, particularly the Gen Zs and the Millennials. And a lot of the statistics here, it's amazing to see areas that I think were forgotten for so long by brands, like the UAE, LATAM, Southeast Asia, are now the fastest growing regions. And authenticity, sustainability, those same values are resonating there. And that's why it's so important to make sure that we're getting our message across in those areas and making sure that whether it's our marketing, our brand voice, that all of it is being consistent and all of it is being authentic. And a big part of that and what we do is really making sure that we're speaking to shoppers in their language, because a shopper in Mexico, for example, might speak Spanish, but the words they use are going to be very different than someone in Spain, right? So if I'm talking to a Gen Z shopper in Australia, and she wants to have, she's searching for lipstick, for example, she's going to be searching for lippy in Google. So those are some of the things I think brands have to be really mindful of, is making sure that they're using the right words and the right phrases. But social media certainly was a big part of why all of these young people are shopping cross-border, because they're on social media, they're learning about brands that way. Can you speak to perhaps, I know you mentioned brand evangelists and influencers and the role that you think perhaps social media plays for TATCHA in that growth?
Yeah, it's huge. So we do obviously, as many consumer goods brands, a lot of influencer activations, and I think for us, we've been focusing on some real big hitters for us based out of the Middle East. And when they may be based out of the Middle East, or their audiences are largely based in the Middle East. And so when we engage with them, we don't overproduce what we're doing, right? We try to keep the structure a little bit more loose and say, how would you naturally engage with your audience? We don't, we ask that they maybe post in different languages. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sadaf. She just did a huge promo with us. I would say 90% of the communications she did were not in English. Right? And then we look on the other end at the data afterwards and see that a huge percentage of those consumers are coming from out of the country, right? And so we're even looking at like, how do we take that to the next step, right? And go even further and say like, what are the ways that we could have an influencer like that be more of a partner for us and kind of start to step into that world, knowing that long term where we'd like to go is be in a world where our technology solutions can surface what is easiest for the consumer, right? Not what is easiest for TATCHA. So different languages, currencies, payment methods, all the many wonderful things that ESW is going to be helping us with, yeah.
That's awesome. And I think that, again, knowing that those Gen Zs and those millennial shoppers, they have the share of wallet. They're the future of brands. So it's wonderful to hear brands really paying attention to what's important and really incorporating those into their core values. So if we can leave everyone with anything, it's to make sure you do step 0 in your skincare and pause and breathe, right? Well, thank you, Markus. I appreciate it so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.